Broadcasting from the Unshackled Studios in Melbourne. This is Wilmsfront, brought to you by theunshackled.net. Now here's Tim Wilms.
Hello everyone and welcome to this week's show. The date is Wednesday the 27th of May 2020. It is 6:30, just past or nearly 20 to 7 here in Melbourne. We are live on the Wilmsfront YouTube channel and you can interact with the show on the Entropy software by accessing the interface in the live chat. I'll just put the link in there. And we're also simulcast on DLive.tv as well. Australia is continuing to see active coronavirus cases decrease, which is fantastic. Attention is now rightly on lifting social restrictions and tearing down state borders as quickly as possible to kickstart our economic recovery from lockdown. Prime Minister Scott Morrison in his National Press Club address yesterday outlined a transition away from the JobKeeper and JobSeeker welfare programs, proposing a new JobMaker program to equip Australians in learning the skills needed with the jobs to rebuild Australia. Now, certainly the perfect time to correct policy and economic settings that to date have held Australia back. A man on the government benches who has already proposed plenty of great ideas to get Australia back on the right track is the member for Hughes from southwestern Sydney, Craig Kelly MP, who joins me from his electorate office. Craig Kelly MP, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, no, good to be with you, Tim.
Now, firstly, how has the life of an MP changed during the coronavirus pandemic? Traditionally, MPs are very hands-on in the community, attending all manner of local events and ceremonies which haven't been able to take place during social distancing.
I'll be honest, we are probably one of the least professions that's been affected. Probably a little bit less travel. We had a couple of parliamentary sittings in Canberra cancelled. A lot more meetings on Skype and Zoom and YouTube and telephone conferences. A lot less travel. A lot more email correspondence. A lot more telephone talking on the telephone than normal, and just a little bit less face to face. But it's pretty much been, other than that, it's pretty much been work as normal.
Because you would have had a lot of inquiries to your office about, because, well, I've experienced it firsthand where I live and interacting with my viewers, the uncertainty just about the coronavirus and what assistance is available, what's going to happen to businesses. That's seen a lot of people contacting their MPs and representatives to try and find out what's going on.
A lot of inquiries, of course, about the JobKeeper and JobSeeker schemes. People asking about what the rules were, would they qualify? Initially when things were being closed down, there was a lot of real distress in the community. I had one guy, ring me and basically break down. He said, mate, so I'm going to have no money. What am I going to do? I have no money. The business is closed. I can't work. He had some sort of takeaway food van that went to different events and football matches and things around the place. So I've got no work. So I've just gone up to Woolworths trying to get a job stacking shelves. But he said I don't get that. I won't go to eat. So those he was then able to qualify under the JobKeeper scheme, which without it. It would have been great, really great social distress. So it was a very good scheme. Look, it had a few hairs on it, but when you're doing something with such speed, with such volume of dollars you have to get out the door to so many people, it was never ever going to be right the first time. I think the Treasurer understood that and he put some built-in flexibility into the scheme.
As I said in my introduction, Scott Morrison in his National Press Club address yesterday, he proposed the next stage be JobMaker, and Well, it could be called job skilling, because in the past, the short-term solution to skill shortages has simply been to import those skills using 457 visas, sort of kicking the can down the road. But obviously, businesses can no longer import people. So now's the time to invest in the real solution to skill Australians and really have a retooling of both higher and vocational education.
Well, that's obviously very important, but that's just one, real small step in in what's required. Ultimately, you're only going to get those employment numbers down in the long term if you get people in the private sector that are prepared to take a risk and have a go and risk their capital and try and start up, and expand their businesses. That's ultimately, government can only do so much. We can't employ everyone, in the government job. It's got to be those people out in the private sector that really have got to be leading the way. And often we talk about, stimulus and spending, or the history from the Great Depression shows that that's not necessarily the best way to go about it. In fact, if you compare the results of Australia and the USA about how they got themselves out of the Great Depression, it was Australia that went through a more policy of I think they called it the Premier's plan. But just look, we've got to get the budget back into the balance. That's the most important thing. And we got our unemployment down much, much quicker than the USA, that just kept on spending and spending and spending government.
Oh, I didn't mean investment, government investment. Of course, it's still the private sector. They're the ones who create the jobs and also launch the businesses. And this is obviously where the debate is at the moment, lifting these social restrictions. Scott Morrison's got the 3-step framework, but it's up to the state premiers to go along that 3-step plan, and there's quite still a long way to go. I know the federal government, people are learning a lot about our federation. They can only do so much when it comes to reopening the economy.
I've been very critical of the state premiers. I think this idea that we have to wait until things are safe, right? And the definition of safety appears to has changed over time. But if you wait for safety, you're going to wait for never. That means waiting for never, and you can't continue to lock up. Like, for example, we've got the border between New South Wales and Queensland. You just can't continue to lock down the Queensland tourism industry to interstate tourists in circumstances where in New South Wales yesterday there were 2 detections of coronavirus out of a population of 7.5 million. 2 people were detected, and both those people contracted the virus overseas. So of local infections yesterday in New South Wales, there was 0. Now the idea that you've got to have that 0 for 4 weeks in a row before you'll open up that border to Queensland, it's just absurd. Because what I see these state premiers have really fallen into the trap for, they keep only looking at the effect of the coronavirus. And they say, we've got to get that coronavirus down to 0. And, oh, yes, we've had 6 deaths from the coronavirus. And what they're not looking at, or not at weighing up, is what is the economic, social, and health costs of lockdowns and having people. We know from past, if you have an increase in unemployment, you get a big increase in adverse lockdown. You get a big increase in rates of self-harm. So it's not as though, look, we just keep everything locked up for the coronavirus and everything else that'll just sort of bubble on in the background and won't harm. Every single hour these lockdowns go on, there's greater economic cost, there's greater social cost, and there's greater health cost. And it's got to be weighing up between both. You've got to weigh up, okay, what is actually these costs of locking things down, and what are the benefits that we are obtaining from them as far as the coronavirus, and weigh the two up. And unless the benefits from locking down are greater, you've got to open the things up. You just can't continue to go on and the way we unlock things down. It's completely unsustainable. Now, what happens if in New South Wales we continue to get, and Victoria, we continue to get the odd case all throughout winter? Does that mean the border with Queensland stays closed forever? And all those businesses and everyone that's invested, and built up businesses and put their life savings into tourism-based business in Queensland, do they close down? Do they just all go, drive them all into bankruptcy? Because their costs still continue, while they're locked down. So this is why it's absolutely vital that we get rid of much of these restrictions. Now, yes, you still have your social distancing. That's still all important. We've still got the bans on international travel. They'll be a while yet. But it's important we get rid of a lot of these restrictions that have no justification in health. Get the place open, get the economy working again, and get people back into jobs.
Well, the deal was how the public interpreted that we need to have these social restrictions and shutdowns so we can flatten the curve and so our ICU wards are not overwhelmed. They're not. There's about, I think, five people in intensive care nationwide with the coronavirus. We've flattened the curve, held up our end of the deal, and you're not going to get zero new infections. There is going to be new cases here and there. We've seen a few outbreaks, but we've gotten on top of it. And it's this mission creep from flattening the curve to...
Glad you use those words. It's been mission creep. Remember, we go back, 2 months, and the buzzword was flatten the curve, flatten the curve. That's what you've got to do, because your hospitals, if you don't flatten the curve, your hospitals won't be able to cope with that sort of spike that you'll have in infections. So you'll have the infections, you understand you have the infections, the number will be the same, but they'll be spread out over a longer period of time. Now, somewhere along that journey, said there was mission creep, and it's sort of gone to an eradication policy, which was never, contemplated when these lockdowns were put in place.
I want to turn now to, you're currently publishing a 20-part series in the Spectator Australia entitled 20 Reasons Why the Wuhan Flu is the final nail in the climate alarmist's coffin. You're up to part 8 at the moment, so there's still a lot to go. My interpretation is certainly the climate activists for a short while were upset that the pandemic had put a halt on their activism and policy agenda, but it seems they've quickly reinvented themselves as preventative health advocates, as they seem to be wanting us to be locked up forever as the best way to keep people healthy. And just by coincidence, that will also halt the global capitalist economic system. Their poster girl, Greta Thunberg, she's now a public health activist appearing on CNN as on their coronavirus expert panel.
Well, yeah, look, it's very interesting how there's been an alignment with, I would say, the more extreme that you are, or more alarmist that you are, on climate change, the more pro you have been of locking everything down, closing everything down and hiding under the bed. There's been a real alignment with those two groups, which has been sort of, I think, quite an interesting outcome. But the article in the Spectator, people often criticise us, you can't call it the Wuhan flu, you shouldn't call it that. Well, hang on. The Spanish flu was called the Spanish flu. We had the Hong Kong flu, we had the Asian flu. Whether they were the original cases that these flus originated from, they were still named after a specific location. We have Ross River fever. We have the Hendra virus out of Queensland. So the idea that you simply can't call it the Wuhan flu because you might upset the communist Chinese somehow is absurd. And that's why I've sort of deliberately called it the Wuhan flu in those articles. And the argument has been that so many things that we are seeing from this Wuhan flu is actually a reason why a lot of climate alarmism may be the end of it, but I think I might be a little bit premature. The zombies are already jumping out of the graves and digging themselves up and wanting to get back on the field and fight. But the next one in the series is an interesting one. It goes to the lockdowns that we've had. Now, they've actually resulted in about 20% decline during different periods in actually CO2 emissions. But that reduction in CO2 emissions is not actually showing up in the global CO2 measurements that are taken in the atmosphere. So where you would expect you have these big reductions of CO2 emissions in man-made emissions, and remember, man-made emissions are only about 3 or 4% of the total emissions. So the vast majority of your emissions, 95% or more of CO2, come from natural sources. They come from the oceans, and they come from vegetation, the soils and trees. And the atmosphere can't tell the difference if that CO2 molecules come from cement manufacturing or fossil fuel manufacturing, or popping the top off a bottle of champagne, or whether it's natural from the oceans. So yet, despite we've gone through all this pain and we've seen this big reduction in man-made CO2 emissions, it's not showing up in the measured levels of CO2 in the atmosphere. So I've had all this pain, all this hardship, and CO2 levels in the atmosphere haven't moved. So it just shows the task that if you want to try and sort of have some meaningful reduction in what the CO2 emissions are, or CO2 levels are, CO2 levels was measured in the atmosphere actually are. We're going to have to go through. This is just like a spin in the bucket as compared to the amount of pain and suffering that we've got to put a lot of people through.
With this economic shutdown, I think the consensus among the quiet Australians, as Scott Morrison has coined them, they're going to say, never again do we want to go through this type of economic turmoil. And when climate activism began in the early 21st century, it was quite a prosperous time, and people they tend when they're wealthy enough, they tend to focus on these sorts of issues. But there's going to be a lot of prioritizing now in a lot of people, and they haven't seen catastrophic consequences of global warming in the past 20 years, but they've seen the catastrophic effects of economic shutdown. And this is probably, I know that there's been a lot of talk whether the federal government will help fund a coal-fired power station. I know there's moves in New South Wales to potentially look at nuclear energy. Now would certainly be the time when the energy sector can become reopened again, and also these corporations that have been hit hard. There might be a rethinking of woke capitalism. Now they're thinking about their bottom line rather than just their PR marketing.
Just a few points on that. The reason why we haven't got had a really big increase, or no one's built a coal-fired power station, not because it's not economical, or it's not because someone's not willing to do it. Remember, there's hundreds of coal-fired power stations being built all around the world today. And these places are paying a premium to import Australian black coal, which we have basically at our doorstep. So they're paying a premium to import Australian black coal, and they still work out it's cheaper for them to build a coal-fired power station. Now, the only reason why it's not being built here in Australia is because of the political uncertainty. You need a lifespan of a coal-fired power station is going to be minimum 30 years, more likely 50 years. So if you're an investor, you've got to get a return on this over 30 or 50 years. Now, you look down the track, who knows what the next Labor government is going to look like. Look, we know the last, only a little over 12 months ago, we could have had a Labor government elected that wanted a 45% economy-wide emissions target that now admits that was a mistake. They could have been elected with that policy, which would have shut down, which would have ended the decimation of anyone with a new coal-fired power station. So how can you actually invest over a 30-year period when who knows what type of mad extremist green left-wing government that you could get elected? We could have governments in 10 years' time that make the Victorian government look like the bastions of conservatism. So this is why the investment is not there, unless there's some sort of government actually coming in and setting some parameters over those 20 years so the investors know that they can get a return. As where all the investment we're seeing in the solar and wind field are all underwritten by the subsidies.
I think we all shudder, given that it's just past the 1 year anniversary of the May 18 federal election. How a shortened Labor government would have handled the pandemic. It would have been Victoria Stan on steroids. And I'm a Melburnian myself, and we only just got released from house arrest. Was it just over a week ago? We're waiting June the 1st for our pubs, cafes and restaurants to open, but we've been on a bad trajectory in Victoria that you'll even get arrested for having an Australian flag on Australia Day. And obviously there's other issues that are going on with the Pell High Court exoneration after we've gone through the Victorian justice system. But I'm still a proud Victorian. I'll never leave, and I'll still fight for my state.
On the Murray just yet. We thought about it. We might have measured it up, worked out some of the costings, but we're not quite ready yet. Look, one point you make. Going back a couple of months ago when all the lockdowns were being discussed and the Prime Minister formed his national cabinet, he had to make a decision about what industries he would close down. Now, there was a lot of pressure on him from the state premiers, the Labor state premiers, to close down the construction industry, which would have closed down all the hardware retail stores and all the hardware and construction supply chains. That would have been about an extra 1.5 million jobs that would have closed down. And a lot of those jobs in the construction industry are paid a lot more than the jobs, say, in the restaurant or cafe industry. So the job keeper, would have been a much less. You would have to have 1.5 million more people on job keeper, and the difference between their wage and the $1,500 a fortnight they were getting would have been much greater. Also, the takeaway food sector of the economy. Now, remember, New Zealand, that closed down altogether.
Yeah. I do a show with a New Zealander, and he's told me just how even more draconian their lockdown was. No KFC, no McDonald's.
So it might be an inconvenience for us, but just imagine the effect that we would have had here. And this is what the Prime Minister was under pressure to do. He was under pressure to close down the construction, close down all the takeaway food, close them all down, right? And all the supply chains through them. Now, if he had have done that, we would have had, I reckon, another 3 million people unemployed. The hit to GDP could have been another 10%. And at the end of the day, when you look at our coronavirus numbers and you look at our infection rates and our death rates per capita, we're almost identical to New Zealand. So there's no reason why there should have been any greater. We're both islands, we both locked ourselves off. You would expect, if New Zealand had all these much harsher restrictions, you would have expected to have seen that if these restrictions had any actually legitimacy, you would have seen a lower number of infections and a lower number of deaths per capita in New Zealand, and you didn't get that. So that shows that the Prime Minister made exactly the right decision that could have saved this country. I think it was one of the biggest economic decisions or calls that a Prime Minister ever had to make, was to say, no, we're going to keep construction going. We're going to keep takeaway food services going, right? Against the wishes of those Labor premiers that saved this country tens or 20s or $50 billion plus, right? And that decision, I believe, would have gone the other way if we would have had a Labor government, because they would have fallen in line with Labor in New Zealand and the Labor states.
We have contained the virus with less disruption and lockdown as a country such as New Zealand and a lot of the US states as well, and that's certainly something to be proud of. Where the envy of the world.
But we had a lot of things in our advantage. Obviously, closing down the, it's easy to look at these things in hindsight. There's obviously things that we did that worked. I think we also had the great advantage of coming out of our summer. We had some very sort of good weather in most of the places there in sort of like late February, early March, and then all the medical literature on the coronavirus says it basically doesn't like warm temperatures and doesn't like the heat. So that was very much in our favour. So shutting down the flights from China was also very much in our favour. The social distancing, you could argue that was very important. But some of the other things, such as like, closing up golf courses. Look, was there a golf outbreak of coronavirus, at the Royal Sydney Golf Club anyone reads about? Or was there any case of coronavirus being detected in any golf course around the country? No. Right? The idea that you saw lone paddleboarders being harassed by the police.
Yeah, that was in one of our inner suburbs, Elwood. I couldn't believe that.
And the idea, and also when you look at some of the health aspects, a lot of other studies on the coronavirus have said all those that have died had a vitamin D deficiency. So rather than telling people hide at home under the bed, I believe some of the advice should have been, well, yes, if you've got to be home, and yes, you've got to keep social distancing, but make sure you actually get out and you get some sunshine, you get your vitamin D levels up, and you get some exercise and you stay fit and healthy. Because also where these lockdowns have been really, really restrictive, such as in Spain and Italy, they've had some of the worst rates of infection per capita of anywhere in the world.
I've noticed where I live, plenty of people out exercising, which is great, and certainly myself, I've appreciated when I have gone outside the fresh air. I appreciate it even more. I'd forgotten how good it was. Now, most people they're able to see your views via your Facebook page. So you were prevented from posting there for a week due to a Facebook bug, which I found bizarre. But you posted this morning about Michael Moore's produced Planet of the Humans Green Energy expose had been removed from YouTube due to 4 seconds of alleged copyright infringement.
Here's a video or a documentary. I think it's an hour 40 minutes or an hour 20 minutes. You still with us?
Yep.
Here's a video. Here's a documentary, an hour and 40 minutes, and they found 4 seconds that someone had a most spurious copyright claim over. And based on that, what YouTube have taken it down. Like, I think that's a version of setting fire to the books. There's got to be some substantive issue, or if you're going to use the copyright excuse, there's got to be some real substantive issue. And 4 seconds of an hour and a half at least documentary where there's an exemption for fair use, I think is a very, very vague, very, very, sort of like, spurious excuse for closing that down. Well, then with the bug that I had on my Facebook page last year, someone did an analysis in the Sydney Morning Herald papers and the Age papers, and they found out that I was getting more following than the Prime Minister and Mr. Albanese together. So I was getting more shares and more likes. So, and when I actually spoke with Facebook, I said, "Oh yes, we know your page. Yeah, your page is one of the highest viewed pages, political pages in Australia." So it always surprised me, and I was at that time quite critical of the lockdown policies that were being implemented not in Australia but around the world. So I thought it was a bit coincidental that there was some bug that they said they sort of shut me down for about 5 or 6 days. But That's up and running again. And but look, I think there's a couple of issues that we have in free speech in our society. If you look at the Peter Ridd case, appalling conduct by James Cook University. If Peter Ridd is successful, or James Cook University is unsuccessful in their appeal, I think the Vice Chancellor and a whole lot of the board up there have no other option but to resign. They're putting it they're running this appeal basically underwritten by taxpayers' dollars. They are the ones that are besmirching the reputation of that university. Then you go down to Queensland University, where you had the I think it was a rather radical left-wing young student, and he
Drew Pavlov, yes.
Now, if he wants to get out and protest, and he's not interfering with others doing their work, right? He should be entitled to stand there and protest about whatever he wants. That's been the tradition of universities, for decades. And to think that he's been sanctioned by a university because he dared criticize the Chinese communists is just completely contrary to everything universities stand for. And again, the vice chancellor of that university should be condemned. And I'll give you one more. The broadcaster Alan Jones is retiring here in Sydney. He's got 2 more days left on the radio. Now, the Australia Media and Communications Authority, which is a government body, which somehow under the legislation has the ability to go over the entrails of a broadcaster's words and make a qualitative determination on if what he said was accurate or not. Now, they have actually, what they actually did, they took Alan's words and they took them completely out of context to give them the opposite meaning of what they were. And I'll go through it. Alan was basically making the point that biomass, which is not really a renewable energy. So biomass is the burning of wood and plant matter for energy. So as the Michael Moore movie shows, chopping down trees and using it for energy is not really friendly to the environment. It emits more CO2 per unit of energy, and it emits more particulate matter. So the idea that you could sort of say you can pump up your renewable numbers by a lot of biomass is basically a fraudulent claim. And that's what Alan was calling out. And Alan's not the only person that's made this claim, and Michael Moore's not the only person that's made this claim in his movies. There's many green groups, in fact, even Greenpeace and I think Friends of the Earth and also have argued against this. The point Alan was making, he said, fossil fuels and biomass together in New Zealand were 70%. But the way he said it, which is 100% factually correct, but the way he said it was fossil fuels, right, open brackets, that is coal and oil and gas, close brackets, and biomass, right, equals 70%. But because when you're giving the transcript or we're speaking live, you don't say open brackets, close brackets, commas to put things in context. So we basically had a whole lot of government bureaucrats in Canberra sitting in some office, being paid by the taxpayer, looking over the words and the transcripts of what someone in the free media has said to try and work out whether the bracket should be here or a comma should be, and whether he actually meant that biomass was a fossil fuel. It's just a complete and utter nonsense, because they wanted to come up with a headline that said Alan Jones made misleading statements on climate change when he made no such thing, on basically creating a straw man argument. And the whole thing was to try and silence Alan on those points. That's what the whole agenda was about. It wasn't about correcting any factual error, because there was no factual error. It was simply about trying to silence free speech.
Well, you're absolutely right to describe it as a kangaroo court, which is what Drew Pavlov is going through with the University of Queensland at the moment. And I'm not sure if you saw this morning that Twitter put the get the facts about mail-in ballots when Donald Trump was tweeting about mail-in ballots, and it leads you to CNN fact checkers who. What makes them more authoritative than the president?
The ABC fact check I've got. I think I have my own personal division down there, and they did one thing I did cover. about 2 years ago, I did a speech at one of the Liberal Party functions here, and someone from GetUp actually snuck or paid the money. Good on them. They donated the money to the Liberal Party. And tape recording under the desk and was secretly recording what I said. It was a big coup. Anyhow, they got and then they went and got a transcript of what I said. And they said, "Oh, I said that the Pacific Islands were actually growing in size, not sinking, right?" And they said, "Oh, we've got you," And so they then passed that on to ABC Fact Check. Yeah, here, go up to Kelly. He's told all these untruths. We've got him on this secret recording. Now, what I said is 100% correct. There's about half a dozen peer-reviewed scientific papers that have actually looked at this and measured this and looked at satellite records going back 50 years and have shown that these actual islands are not sinking. They are actually increasing in size. And so ABC Fact Check ringing me up, "Oh, we've got you. So they get you. How can you justify that?" So I went back and said, here's the Professor Kent from the University of Auckland. Here's this paper, this paper, this paper. Here's this other professor from France that's done this. Right? And then I said, "Come on, now you guys have to publish this. You can't do the investigation without publishing it." So I think they published it like on Christmas Eve one day that no one had seen it. And then another case, I did an interview with that Piers Morgan character over in the UK, and I made the statement that we've had more rainfall across Australia the first 20 years of last century. We've had more rain than the first 20 years of this century, which completely goes in the face of the nonsense claim that the country's drying out, we're getting less rain. No, we've had more rain. There's been more rain in the last 20 years than there was the first 20 years of last century. So they fact-checked. So we're doing a fact-check. And they did pages and pages of it, and their conclusion was that I was misleading or I was wrong, and yet in their own words, they said I was correct. And they basically said exactly what I said. But the headline that they wrote was that, Craig Kelly was wrong saying this. And that's ABC Fact Check. So you're right. Who makes these people, so like judge, jury, prosecution, and executor, when they don't have, we're far better to have more of you have you're better to have free speech. And what's the great saying from John Stuart Mill? He says, even if you are hearing an idea that is wrong, you are better to hear that because it helps you understand that your view of the world or your idea is actually right because it's been able to defend this. And on the outside case that your idea is wrong and theirs right, what have you got to lose? So the idea that we should be shutting down, free speech in this country is something where I think really we have to push back hard from. And as that Queensland guys, I understand from the far left, it shouldn't just be sort of the Conservatives that are pushing back against free speech. It should be against all, pushing back to open up free speech. It should be all people across all levels of society.
Yeah, we need open debate and discussion of ideas more than ever. And obviously, the media likes to paint you as an outspoken backbencher. They haven't used the term maverick MP, but I have observed that during when the Morrison government was lobbying for this independent international investigation into the origins of the coronavirus, and we've seen China impose tariffs and threaten more. The Labor opposition shadow cabinet, they did support the motion, but they decided to criticize some of your colleagues on the backbench for simply speaking about China's aggressiveness and warning about our trade dependence. And they seem to be advocating that, because I think it's a healthy thing for our democracy that MPs are free to reflect their views of their constituents who they're elected to represent. It sounds like critics of yours, they want you to be yes man on the backbench and just parrot the talking points. You should be some sort of part of some sort of super executive when you're a legislator.
One thing that, and I'm critical of our party here, there's what 70 odd, 76 of us odd in the House of Reps, and what 20 odd, 8 of us. So it's about 100 plus in the government party room. Now those people in that party room, they've had business experience in all different industries and all different walks of life. So the best way to make sure you get the best policy is, if you're a minister, you want to bring that policy to that party room and you want to say, okay, guys, tell me the problems with this. Tell me why this is wrong. Get out there and argue against me, because it doesn't matter how smart you are as a minister. You've got this brains trust in the party room that's been up, I said, every rabbit hole in the country and been involved in every industry. And someone is going to have a perspective about that policy that you haven't thought about or you haven't seen. And that's why it's so important that we're not frightened to, you can't all be yes men in politics. You want people to be, dissent and to argue and to take the contrarian position. Like, I have a sign on my wall here with the girls and my office staff. I say, argue with me. If I'm having the discussion how bad I'm doing something, if you just say, yes, Craig, that sounds good, you're of no use to me. That's pointless. I want someone to come and say to me, oh, Craig, why don't you use this word instead of that word? Or, have you thought about, look, there's this section of community down in one sector of the electorate, they might not like what you're saying. Have you considered this? You want people to come. I want people to come and give me alternate opinions and tell me I'm wrong. So that's I tell them that's your job in my office, to come to me and say, hey, Craig, I think you're doing this wrong. This is have you considered this? Have you thought about that? And most of the time I can say, yes, I have. But on the odd occasion I haven't. But I'd much rather have that input than not have it.
Yeah, you're well known for your media appearances, and you're willing to talk to anyone, including coming on this show tonight, which I've greatly appreciated.
The game that we're in is a contest of ideas. That's part of the political debate. No one has everything right, and the only way you're going to get to what is the best policy for the nation is if you have open and vigorous contest of ideas in debates. That's what the last 1,000 years of history has shown us, or 2,000 years of history plus has shown us, that you want that contest of ideas. That's so vital to flush things out. And I just I'm fearful in many respects that we don't appreciate that. Look, that's why I think the coronavirus has given us this a good lesson in this, because it's not just say trust the expert. Well, which expert? Because when it comes to the coronavirus, we've got a lot of experts that have all different opinions and often completely opposite views. So we should be listening to all those competing views. And it's our job as members of Parliament to listen to all those views and try and make up our mind which one we're going to have with the policy. Where you see the global warmists, there's a 98% or 99% consensus, and no one's allowed to argue. But that is just such a dangerous. Put the global warming issue aside, but to have that idea spread amongst students and people at university, that you have this you always have the consensus opinion, and everyone does, I think is very dangerous. For innovation and for progress of our society.
Hopefully there can be this continued reflection and during with the coronavirus, and also an opportunity to fix, whether it be the economy or reflect on the state of free speech and debate. And that's why I started the Unshackled. It's in the name. We want. This is why I do what I do, because free speech, debate, open ideas is critical to the future.
Good on you. That's exactly right. And the lessons from history show us that. And the idea that there's this one expert that we can never, question or look at. Every major scientific breakthrough every major new product that's been developed has been someone going about saying, hey, what everyone thinks is the best way of doing things, I think we can do it a little bit better. And when they come up with that thought, maybe 98% of the time they're going to be wrong, but it's that 1 or 2% time that they are right that changes the way people think about doing things. That has led to almost every single scientific and economic progress that we've had over the last few centuries.
Yep. Too right. I would encourage people to like your page on Facebook. Hopefully, no more bugs, because that's where they can see your unfiltered opinion. Your posts are excellent in detail. And when does Parliament come back? When will you be back in Canberra?
Second week of June. So I've got we've got the end of this week and another week, and then I think we're back down in Canberra there. So I'm looking forward to getting back down, and it's a great to be able to stand up in that Parliament House and to express your views is a great privilege. I never take it for granted, and it's a special privilege to do so every time you stand up. I'm looking forward to getting back there. I said in about a fortnight's time.
I think also one of the reasons why the left they so despise you is that you always have a smile on your face, and when you're not smiling, you're just passionate. You don't come across as angry. You're clearly passionate, and I think that grates on them as well.
Also, there's the best way to defeat someone in a debate. If you can bring in a little bit of humour in the debate, and you can defeat them with a bit of you've got them sort of thing. If you can sort of do it in like a way with a smile in your face, and that's why I love the political cartoons. I think the political cartoons are great because they're so cutting, and to knock your opponent off with a bit of a joke and a smile on your face is so much more a way of changing people's opinions on things.
Yeah, we need more comedy as well. That's what we need as well. Free speech in comedy as well.
Well, that's why also remember in the our copyright law, we have specially parody and satire exemptions. So you're able to what under normal circumstances could be a breach of copyright in your broadcast or what you do what I do on social media. Yes, there's the fair use exemption, but if you're doing it with parody or satire, you can pretty much get away with anything. So that's a very important exemption that we have specifically written in our copyright laws, which sometimes I think people don't use enough of.
Oh yeah, definitely. Satire and ridicule which has been used by one of your state Victorian Liberal MPs, Tim Smith. I think that might have nudged Daniel Andrews to relax the lockdown.
Look, I've never met Tim. I've seen him interviewed a few times. Very impressive guy. And I think that's what the public wants to see. They want to see, you got to take the fight up to. When Andrews is doing all these, we look it up here. We used to all just shake our head. What's going? We joke about Victoria standing these stuff, and we often think, where is the opposition taking the ball right up to him? So it's really been. I think Tim's been a breath of fresh air. I think he's doing a great job down there.
Yep, definitely Daniel Andrews needs more scrutiny. I'll wrap it up now. Thank you.
That Belt and Road stuff, you guys down there in Victoria, you've got to be screaming the house down over that. Right? Got to at least see what this actual contract says. This is not a joking issue. This thing, he signed you up to some deal with the Chinese communists that you don't know what the detail of what interest rate or what you have to pay down the track. Like that is completely contrary to everything about our Australian democracy. And you've got to be everyone in Victoria should be screaming their house down and demanding to see the details of what he's actually signed you up to.
Well, he is thankfully getting some more scrutiny on that as well. I know that there's a local activist here, Fiona Hu. She started a petition to have more scrutiny on it. So that's thankfully beginning to take place.
Okay. Great to be with you, Tim.
Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure. Anytime.
Thank
All
you.
the best. Yep.
That was Craig Kelly, MP. Obviously, whenever he's in the media, he's got a lot to say, and of course, in Wilmsfront, this is an exploratorial show, and so we're able to explore a whole range of topics with him. I'm now going to bring in my second featured guest for tonight. His name is just up on the screen. I'll see his video there. So on Wilmsfront and on the unshackled.net, we've been covering the new local freedom fighters as many lockdown measures continue to drag on for no justifiable public health benefits. This new freedom movement was really turbocharged by the totalitarian actions of Victoria Police at the Mother's Day protest outside Victoria's Parliament House, which they aggressively shut down. We did a feature on Wilmsfront on Fanos, who was dragged off the speaker steps mid-speech at that protest. Fanos is continuing with his regular live streams in his 99% Unite Facebook group. One of the other admins of that group is another Melburnian, Rafael Fernandez. He is a skeptic of the push for increased mass surveillance and mass medication on public health grounds. He describes himself as an empowerment community owner, cryptocurrency trader, and entrepreneur. He's launched Belachi University. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you got it right.
Yeah, featuring a Grow Your Wealth masterclass and also vlogs about his life and business ventures on his YouTube channel. Raphael, thanks for joining me on Wilmsfront tonight.
Well, thank you so much, Tim. That was an incredible introduction. I've never had one before. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I've seen your videos. And yeah, let's get straight into this.
Now, you are of Spanish ethnic heritage. You actually know Spanish.
Yes, I do.
We have a lot of Spanish fans of the show. They're probably the biggest non-white demographic after the Greeks here, which is. I know I do all the sort of breakdowns and that of sort of my show demographics, and that's I'm aware of those sort of fun facts. Somebody said in the chat, you look like Borat.
Oh my God, I can't see the chat, so you're gonna have to keep me up with it. Tell them thank you. No.
Someone's just alerted me to update the graphics there, so your name is on the screen now. I just want to start by, were you at the Mother's Day protest? Did you attend that?
Yeah, so I was there, and honestly, for the first half, it was incredible. Everyone was, listening to the speakers. Everyone was engaging, and everything was, going really well until that turn of events.
Were you manhandled by police? Did they threaten to fine you? Did they try to track you down afterwards?
No, so I actually haven't received a fine at all, which is surprising because I'm one of the admins of the group. Although I wasn't one of the speakers and I wasn't seen as one of the organizers. I know that Fanos was unfairly chosen as one of the organizers when he in fact wasn't.
No.
But yeah, no, I got out of there as soon as, there was about 4 arrests that happened with the speakers, and then, yeah, I was gone because by then the crowd already had dispersed.
And even if you did get a fine in the mail, you wouldn't just suck it up and pay it.
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't pay a cent because I know that there are not-for-profit lawyers that are actually helping out people that got fines and are actually getting them out of it without having to pay a cent, which is awesome. So I know that I understand that there's an Australia-wide event on the 30th of May. So there will be lawyers representing us then. And
this is the Melbourne one at the Botanical Gardens, I'm correct?
Yes, correct.
And I know that the New South Wales ones, they're I know how this sounds. They've been granted a permit by police for the protest, but of course, why should you need a permit to exercise your free speech? Has there been? I'm not sure if you're in the loop. Has there been any correspondence with the organisers and Victoria Police on this occasion? Because, well, this is yet to be tested in court, but we are still under another state of emergency with the fifth reason you're allowed to leave the house. We are technically still under house arrest. The fifth reason you're allowed to leave the house is to visit friends and family. That's considered essential travel. So it's not until June the 1st when we'll be somewhat liberated.
Yes, so I'm actually not too sure about the restrictions like being changed. I haven't been keeping up with that, although I have been hearing around that, and I have been seeing like out in public, the amount of people that are just gathering for picnics and stuff, it's a huge amount of numbers. So I've just heard that you need to stick in your groups of 10, and make sure you're keeping your social distancing, and then, yeah, it should be right. As long as you aren't breaking that, I believe, then it should be good. And they've also said that you can't be talking on the mic. So that's something that can't be happening. So I guess you just got to be, walking around and staying in your groups.
I would say saying your views on a microphone, that apparently breaches social distancing. How does that work?
I don't know why they said we can't use a microphone. I just believe that if we do and we have speakers, then for sure the police will try to get involved and shut down whatever's going on, as we saw last time.
Margot, my YouTube chat moderator, she was there at the Mother's Day protest. She's a mother herself, so brought her children with her. Said, I don't remember seeing Raf at the Mother's Day rally, but we'll take your word for it that you were there. She was doing some filming, which she sent back to me. She was sort of all over the place. So I think she'll... Margot, are you going to come this Sunday? I'll ask her a question on air. We have got a super chat on Entropy. If you have a super chat or want to ask a question, I'll put the link in again. This is from Just Saying. We're being told that to get back to normal, we must install the government's COVID Safe app and take any vaccine that gets developed. Oh, this was a question for Craig Kelly. I didn't see it, who was on before. But I'll just read it out. Does he understand the lack of trust that the population feels about parties having constantly sold Australia out? Well, may as well segue into this. We've actually been told not to download it anymore. It's sort of it's been sort of what would you call it, a lemon of a product. I assume you haven't downloaded it. I haven't downloaded it. I know that our smartphones they have a lot of apps track a lot of what we do, but we don't basically invite more of it.
Yeah, so I actually don't have the app, and I did find out that the Australian government has been trying to link with, or I believe they already have linked with Google Maps. I don't know the specifics, though I have also seen that the new iPhone update actually includes something to do with COVID-19, like the app. I'm not too sure about those specifics either, but yeah, it just looks like they're still trying to get it on the back end, and I feel like they understand that they pushed it a little bit too much. They got a lot of backlash from it. So I feel like that might be the reason why, we've been told maybe not to download it now.
So thanks for the super chat. Just saying that was for 25 Australian dollars. So very generous of you. And I've also got a poll in Entropy. Should the state borders be torn down? Because that's sort of the big, well, the sort of the new debate at the moment. And the irony is, even though Victoria's had the most restrictive lockdown, our state borders were never shut. You can't go into South Australia because they've shut their borders, but you can go to New South Wales, the ACT, cross the state borders with ease. So if you do want to flee as a refugee from Victoria, you can.
Yeah, so I'm not too sure about the borders and like the specifics of all of that. Though I do believe I don't know, I don't necessarily agree, especially with the rules that, there was a point where I can't even go and drive an hour away on my own to literally walk with my dog in the forest. That is just illegal in a sense with these new rules. So yeah, a lot of it doesn't necessarily make sense, because at the same time you see supermarkets that are packed. You see Chadstone Shopping Centre here in Melbourne as well, absolutely packed on the weekend. So these rules and whatever they're bringing out just simply does not make sense.
I know that one of your podcasts is called Journey to Brighton. That's your idea where you want to live. We'll get to your business ventures in a moment. But obviously, like, don't dox where you live. But where, like, in what sort of area in Melbourne are you based?
South.
South.
Yeah, southeast, but more south.
Yeah, I'm in the southeast around Frankston, so I think we're sort of familiar with. Obviously, I know Chadstone and all those sort of areas there. I definitely consider myself more a South Melburnian. I don't like venturing north of the Yarra.
Okay, yep, because it is a bit of a distance from where you are, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, and also the fact that in the north, the infrastructure is so bad, or there's no sort of straight road or anything.
Oh yeah, of course. I feel like down where Frankston is and all that, it's a lot more open, and obviously because you can tell how they were obviously developed at different times, and I think you got the better area with that.
We've got a question on entropy from the Australian Vanguard, which is Raymond Foster in the chat, to my knowledge. He's in the chat. He'll correct me if I'm wrong. Tim, what are yours and your guests' plans after lockdown ends? Going camping, a festival, or just a nice coffee or cappuccino at a cafe? Haha. Well, the thing is, if you want to go to a cafe, dine in, you have to give your name and contact details, which I'm not doing that. I'd rather just have a house party.
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel the same way. You just get a takeaway, or just make it at home.
Now I want to talk about. We got sort of sidetracked with the super chats and the questions, which, well, I encourage the audience to interact. So I'm happy to read out their contributions and have the guests contribute. So you're an admin of the 99% Unite Facebook group, which now has 55,000 members. Obviously, it started out how every Facebook does, by user creating it, and it's grown rapidly, organically over the past month. Adminning such a large group, it would be a thankless task, and also it's unpaid as well. What's it been like for you? Because obviously you have so many people posting different things. What have been sort of the trends in posts and memberships that you've noticed?
So at the very beginning, when I started, it was very, very easy with reporting posts, or at least taking down reported posts, because there weren't that many members at all. Though very recently we've had, I believe there's about 15 or so moderators now that are just, checking up on those reported posts. And it's a huge shame, because we have very, very high quality content that actually gets uploaded to this group. But as you may know, fact checkers, so Bill Gates is the largest, or the Gates Foundation is the largest funder of fact checkers, and they tend to take down all these posts of ours. I believe there are over 600 and possibly even 650 posts that have been removed now because of being fake news, according to Facebook, which is disappointing, and it's very, very hard to find that information. So it gets overrun in a sense by people that are trying to come in and cause an issue, because at the same time you have others that aren't quite woken up to things that are happening in the world right now. They think that everything's going to go back to normal, and these people like to come into the group to start trouble. They start to troll and abuse other members. So I feel like the moderators, we have been on top of it, and we're going to start taking a lot more stricter measures now when it comes to individuals that want to join the group, actually needing them to answer the questions. Doesn't matter if they lie or not. I think it's more so that there are less bots or people that are in that aren't for the cause.
I know for a fact that there's a lot of Antifa Marxist spies and stalkers of Thanos and yourself. I noticed one of them on Twitter claimed that your vodcast is what the ABC comedy show was talking about when they said people shouldn't start a podcast, even though you've been doing it before the pandemic. So yeah, you're getting noticed and stalked by, well, I just simply call them freedom haters.
Oh, that's incredible. That's the first time I've heard of that. That's awesome.
Well, I've been dealing with these people since I started the Unshackled in late 2016. So I know who they are, and I counter cyberstalk them. And I noticed one of them, Cam Smith is his name. When I pressed follow on his Twitter account, I didn't even say anything. He blocked me. He just, even though I can still view his tweets like through other means than that, I thought that was funny.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's just so funny. Yeah.
You also spoke about Facebook fact checking the posts in the group. Has Facebook threatened action against the group? Like,
yeah. Oh, sorry. Go on. Yeah.
Because I know that with our Unshackled Facebook page, we have what's called page quality, that something gets taken down for hate speech or breaching community standards. It goes yellow, and then it goes red that you're in danger of being unpublished. I'm not sure how it works for groups.
Yeah, so I believe we got our first proper strike, or however it is on Facebook. I don't know the specifics of it like YouTube. It's not as obvious in a sense when it comes to groups, but I believe we got our first one last week. And yeah, as I said before, we've had about 650 posts taken down automatically by Facebook. And yeah, we're definitely being alerted in our notifications because it's something that only the admins can see. And yeah, it seems as if the page is getting attacked more and more as time goes on. So that's why, in a sense, we've also got backup pages, and that we're also on other platforms just in case we actually do get taken down. Because I know of a group that was doing similar stuff to us. They had about 128,000 members, and their page just got disabled. So yeah, Facebook has been on our group, and I've been seeing it more and more. So I believe it's only a matter of time until further action is taken.
I tune into Thanos's vlogs in the group when I can, because he's emerged as the main sort of face of, he doesn't like the word when I interviewed him, anti-lockdown activist. He describes himself as pro-truth, anti-bullshit. And the recurring theme in his lives is that if what people are talking about is so incorrect, then why do you what's the deal with taking it down? Don't you realize that you're just creating more suspicion? Which I agree with that. It comes down to two things: that either you think that people are too stupid to make up their own mind, that they can't investigate the facts themselves, or that you're scared that the person you're censoring is speaking truth. And Thanos tends to ask more questions than he, I would say, answers.
Yes, so based on that, sorry, I've gone a bit blank. Let me just, what was the very first question sort of thing, and then the second one, just because I got a bit sidetracked on the second part.
Yeah, talking about that this censorship, it just makes people more suspicious.
Yeah, so for sure, 100%. Because if we were, or at least, us and the people in the group were just saying ridiculous, crazy things, I don't think that there would be so much censorship on the subject. And as you've seen with Google, YouTube, and Facebook all banning health-related contents that link anything to 5G technology, in a sense, it's like, I don't believe that they would be doing this if there wasn't something there. So yeah, it really doesn't make sense for them to be blocking people trying to speak on it, because if there wasn't anything there, then we wouldn't get to any sort of points. And even if we did, it would be proven false anyway. So most certainly by trying to censor people on certain topics, it does raise alarm bells that something definitely is happening.
I found the case study of Alex Jones. I found it so interesting that they basically allowed him free reign on the internet for 20 years, but then there was a coordinated takedown at the second half of 2018, and it was in the middle of 2019 when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested and suicided, and the lid was lifted on these elite pedophile rings that he was proved right about most of it. And it was just interesting that that happened 6 months before all this came out. And I noticed even a lot of sort of mainstream people seeking Alex Jones's expertise on that. It's those sort of things you sort of reflect on, that it was interesting they took him down during that time.
Yeah, for sure. And I believe that Alex Jones is definitely a big one. And it's great because it does get people that are watching him knowing that when he might speak all crazy stuff or whatever people believe with the things that he brings up, but then as time goes by and you realize things that he was saying was actually correct, then you start to listen into these people more, and then you start to understand more and more why they're being censored, why they're being deplatformed. And yeah, it's just great because the people that believe in it, they end up believing it even more and actually putting more effort into searching for more information, exactly what the elites don't want. But yeah, it is interesting.
Now, what are your exact views on the coronavirus? Do you believe that it's contagious? Do you believe that some of the containment measures are necessary? Because there's actually quite a diversity of views amongst the anti-lockdown advocates.
Okay, so when it comes to the virus, look, I'm not a doctor. I don't study medicine and viruses or whatever of any sort. Though when I feel like measures are put in place that simply don't add up based on the numbers that we've been given, that's when I start to ask questions. So when it comes to this virus, if there even is a virus, I typically just look at the numbers. What I've seen is that in the last, it's been just over 4 months now, Australia-wide, we've had, I believe it's 102 deaths. And a whole country was shut down in a sense because of that. And the media as well likes to pump up these numbers. Like they talk about the thousands and thousands of cases. They might say, oh, we've had 2,100 cases in the last 4 months. And then later on, they'll be like, out of the 2,100, we've had 2,050 recovered. They just love using the big numbers. And also at the same time, with the numbers going around all over the world, they're all over the place. So it has me asking, are these tests even accurate in the first place? And it brings me to this point where the president of Tanzania, he came out a couple of weeks ago talking about that he had a goat tested, he had a pawpaw tested, a durian, and one of their native birds tested. So he put a fake name and age on these, sent them in to the testing facility. They came back all positive. So if this same test is the one that everyone is relying on a global scale, and you have these things testing positive, it does raise a lot of alarm bells. And also with the numbers being pumped up, I believe in a sense as well, where in the US, I believe it was per patient that dies in the hospital, they get the hospitals get a payout of over $30,000 per person. So there's also incentive as well. So yeah, there are a lot of things going on.
I do, and I know that how this is going to sound. I do believe that the figures coming out of Australia's health department are accurate, and because I've analysed them, and you see with the more and more tests that they do, that positive rate continues to go down, and it's clear that, or at least at the federal level, they don't want this pandemic and lockdown to continue. And I know that I think with 2 deaths in Tasmania, there's a coroner's inquest about whether they died from coronavirus or something else. So they are going to look at all the deaths linked to coronavirus in Australia to determine if they died from coronavirus or whether it was an underlying health condition. There was a 30-year-old miner who died in central Queensland today, who they found out after he died had coronavirus, but he had underlying health conditions, so it might not have been coronavirus that killed it. So we've certainly, I think, in Australia, through our health bureaucracies, avoided what we've seen in New York, where it's just anyone who's got the coronavirus, well, if they die and they've got traces of the coronavirus, they're counted as a death. The figures in overseas nations, I would trust a lot less. But it's clear Australia is coming out of it. June 1, we're able to go to cafes. June 22nd is when gyms reopen, and also theatres, though you probably have to give your information when you go in. We're on the way out. So, but now what we're worried of is what is this new normal going to be? We've talked about the COVID safe app. I know that Thanos, in his it was when he was being tackled by Victoria Police, he was talking about microchips, and they've been proposed for around 20 years. They, in my opinion, sort of, people would see that as too obvious. I think definitely the COVID safe app, encouraging people to download that, that's sort of like a soft chipping, since most people have got smartphones. But we see the Queensland state government saying to professional athletes, you won't be able to play sport here unless you have a flu vaccine, which doesn't protect you from the coronavirus. So where do you see the new normal heading?
Well, what I've really been focusing on with this new normal is I've seen that Melbourne City especially, and I'm sure the rest of Australia, that we have a whole smart city now with AI facial recognition cameras. And I believe that this new word, new normal, is making it in a sense that we aren't going to go back to our regular lives, with the same distances that we were to other people. And I do believe it is for these cameras to work in a sense, because we have also seen that a rollout is going to happen with cameras that can check your body temperature. And I believe it was at the beginning of this week now as well, that there are also going to be social distancing cameras installed inside workplaces. And these cameras can check, the meters apart, and it can also know who you are, even if you've got a face mask on. So I don't believe that these cameras and all this happening is to do with a virus or such a shorter term thing, because these are measures taking place that are going to affect us from now on for the long term. And who knows how they will use this. If you get too close to a colleague and then they believe that they had, they came across someone with COVID or something like that, and then you may very well be forced to have a mandatory vaccine, something like that. Like with childcare workers, they can't go back to work unless they have a vaccine. And I have close family members that actually are being affected by that. And even when it comes to visiting nursing homes, you can't go in without having a flu vaccine. So it's just going to be interesting with the measures that get put in place from here. I don't believe that we're just going to go out and they're going to say, all right, one by one, yeah, we're just going to be opening things slowly, and then things are going to go normal in a sense with this new normal. I believe that there are more plans being made that we are going to be unaware of, that are going to most certainly have us being more controlled?
Well, the surveillance state has always wanted to advance. They've probably got their greatest grip in the United Kingdom. They've got the most CCTV coverage in the Western world, and they've also during the lockdown managed to get a lot of Brits snitching on their fellow Brits, and sadly Victoria was the snitch state. I'm not sure if you saw that story, that the Defence Force had to be called in to answer snitch line calls, which was quite sad, really. And the fact that the fine for breaching the chief health officer's directives is 1,658. I mean, you get less for by a court for some pretty other serious offences.
Yeah, I believe the fines are most certainly ridiculous, and it makes me lose a lot of hope in our people with these snitches as well. Like, I saw the numbers; they were in the thousands every single day over March, and yeah, I believe that's where there's two different types of people in this, or at least three. There's most certainly the type that are just, full on mainstream media. This is all they listen to. They shut off to anything else. And it makes sense for those people to be dobbing on their neighbors, because the way that we're being told and communicated how this is that people are dying left, right, and center. There are so many cases, different states. You can't be too close to someone or you're going to get it. There's just a lot of things that we're being bombarded with informationally, and it makes sense for those people. And then you have the other people that, like me, if I had my neighbor like having a party with a group of, just say, even 5 people, like I'm not going to call the cops. Like, what is this?
I've noticed where I live, when I go out for myself for a walk or to the shops, there's so many people out exercising, because during the lockdown that was one of the reasonable excuses to be outside the house, and I was just like, good on you, taking advantage of that and getting out of the house. And we saw even on Mother's Day, while Victoria Police were suppressing that protest, that a lot of Victorians were, as the expression goes, voting with their feet. Chadstone and other major shopping centres were full of people, though apparently it was more important for the Victoria Police to be at your event rather than at these shopping centres, maybe because you were engaging in political speech.
Well, look, if this had been organized for a gathering to be inside Chadstone, I reckon they would have been more all right with that, which is just silly in a sense. So I believe that's actually a smart move next time, doing it in a shopping center or a supermarket where people are already gathered like that in the first place.
I noticed some of the anti-lockdown protests over in the UK. There was this hilarious clip where when they're all like gathered in there, when the police approached, they did exercise moves.
Oh yeah, I saw the live streams. They were stretching. They were doing everything like that. Like, smart on their end, because they didn't. I don't believe they got caught out. I believe it was Adelaide that I don't believe anyone got arrested there, and they were all in their workout clothes as well. And they were literally just marching, and then they'd keep walking down, and then they'd turn around and say, look guys, we're going to separate, we're going to go this way. And it had all the police were literally just in shock, and they didn't even know what the hell was going on.
And this is another thing, if the government and the police are worried about you saying what you're saying about vaccinations or 5G or microchips, then leave you alone. Like, you're not going to be on the news if the police just stand back and there's no money shot for the photographers there. That's
Oh
another
yeah,
thing.
of course, of course. It doesn't make sense, but although they know that there is truth to what's being spoken, so they need to put their authoritative powers over us to scare people from trying to do anything. And speaking about the news there, I actually saw footage, and you may not know this, and this was very, very disgusting. Where pretty much there was a man with his pram with his
Yeah,
kids,
I
and
saw that. That was very difficult to watch.
yeah, but did you see when he got taken to the other side, and as soon as he was crossing the road with about 15 police on him, that's when the Channel 9 news lady had turned around and started talking, with it all happening behind her, talking about violent protesters and stuff like that. And then the camera was still rolling from someone that was right there, and then she turns around and says to the police officer and says, "Thank you for organizing that."
That's shocking.
Yep.
Now let's finish off by talking about your business ventures at the moment, which you've been promoting. So talk about. I've forgotten how to say it again.
Bellalachi.
Valachi University. Is that a Spanish word?
Nah, so the word actually comes from the two words believe, achieve, and it's the first four letters of believe and the first four letters of achieve put together. Yeah, and I was able to, like, no one else had the website, the social medias, the trademark. So it was pretty cool how I came across that.
I'm going to be very blunt with this next question. Why should people go to you for life advice? By going to your site, doing your masterclass, how are they're going to make their lives better post when the economy opens up again?
Yeah, so one of the things that I really focus on is meditation with those that are within my community. And I believe that it's a great thing because we get bombarded with so much negative news from the media. We've all had past traumas that we haven't gotten over. And I believe that if we're going to stand up to anything that's going on, as to whatever you're facing with, whether it's work, whether it's life, whether it's freedom of speech or whatever, you are most likely going to freeze in certain situations, or fear is going to come into you based on things that you've learned in the past. So where meditation comes in, and what I teach my clients, is that once you actually get into a meditative state, your brainwaves start to slow down and you are able to get into your subconscious mind. And that's where all your programs and habits, your deep programs and habits lie. So we are 95% unconscious and 5% conscious. So really, with the majority of things that are happening to us in our lives, we are just reacting based on past experiences. So if you want to find out why you're reacting to certain ways, and if you want to respond to situations that happen to your life going forward, then meditation is a must. And I know there's other ways, though. Meditation is what I focus on, where you go into your subconscious mind, you change the reasons behind your beliefs, and then when you're in the real world and certain things come up where you would have reacted, you're able to actually perceive it in a different way and respond.
I'll put your website up on the screen here. Oh no, that's not it. Here we go here. So it's growyourwealth.coach/free-training. So this is your website here. You're also big on crypto currencies, and one of the things that we've noticed during this lockdown is some businesses refusing to take cash, and there's been a lot of concern about the the push to a cashless society, which there's the $10,000 cash ban bill before the federal parliament, and crypto obviously it's not a government issued currency, but it gives you the degree of privacy that obviously credit card and other digital transactions can't give you.
Yes, of course. Well, we're most certainly seeing the world getting rid of cash more and more every single year, and we're most certainly going to get to a point where all we have is digital currencies. Right now, we do have governments all around the world that are actually working on bringing out their own digital currencies. So obviously it's going to be like the US dollar, just holding its value, and then they're able to create more online as they do so in a way with printing out cash. So with cryptocurrencies, yes, it does provide more privacy, because let's say, for example, if I want to be trading with Bitcoin, except with Bitcoin, I will say it's not seen as a currency in itself. In the cryptocurrency space, it's seen more as a store of value. Though when coins actually do come up where people transact with, like Monero is another one, which is incredible privacy coin where you can't see how much money my wallet has. I have complete control of it. No one can tell me where I can spend it. And if I was to be sending you money with this Monero currency, then no one can see on the network how much is being sent to you. They can't see how much you have or anything like that, which is amazing. And you don't need to give in any information of yours to even own a wallet or buy some in the first place in some places.
And your YouTube channel, I mentioned before, you've got a few different podcasts. I'll direct our audience to your YouTube channel, but where can people find just list the podcasts that you have, and where can we find them?
Yeah, sure. So I have a podcast called Keeping It RAF, and I upload to Spotify, Apple Podcast, and you can find it online as well. And with the YouTube channel, I upload my podcast there too, as sometimes I'll actually record as well. And the YouTube channel is just Rafael Fernandez, and that channel's a bit random. I like to post a lot of different things. Like I will likely post videos like on topics like this that we've discussed today. I'll sometimes vlog my days if I want to show people the things that are happening on the back end of the business, and even just answer questions if there are any. But yeah.
And to the ABC, if you don't like Raf's podcast, you don't have to listen to it.
That's hilarious. So good.
I have gone 10 minutes over what I promised you. It's 8:10 now, so we might wrap it up there. But I'd love to chat with you further, both on and off the air as well. Given we're on the way out of lockdown, and you're a local to me, we can catch up for a non-traceable drink in the near future.
Yes, of course. I'd look forward to it. That would be awesome.
And I should be able to cover the rally on Sunday, so I might see you there as well. So it's
awesome.
12 p.m. Royal Botanical Gardens.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
If I see you, I'll look out for you, and I should have my camera, so hopefully we can get some content.
Yep. Well, I'll see you then.
But sweet. Thank you very much, Tim. I appreciate it. And yeah, have a great one. Thanks everyone for watching this.
You too. Whew. So another crazy Wednesday show, as I call it, with a double feature, and of course, it's when you have two live guests, it's always difficult to coordinate it. So, thank you to Craig Kelly, MP, for coming on before, and thank you to Rafael Fernandez just then. I was glad I was able to bring you another action-packed, high adrenaline show tonight, and it's 20 minutes until Dia Beltran's weekly live stream over on her channel at 8:30 p.m. Melbourne time. Obviously, since I only do this show weekly now, there's a lot of on one's front I like to comment on a lot of the news that has happened, so I'd like to take some time to do that. Obviously, there hasn't been a story on the Unshackled about it yet, but we will publish one. Clementine Ford's rare apology for one of her misandrist tweets when she said she was sad that the coronavirus hadn't killed enough men. The reason why she's apologized is because Sally Capp, the Mayor of Melbourne, has threatened to withdraw the grant that the City of Melbourne gave her recently. And well, Clementine Ford, she's made a whole bunch of misandrous tweets in the past, the most infamous kill all men. But given this was wishing that a group of people would, more of them would die because of the coronavirus when we're trying to save lives, that's quite an insensitive thing to say, period. Also, what's been in the news today, I'll bring it up on the screen. I'm not sure if many of you have been following this extradition story here. Malka Leifer, this is from the ABC, alleged pedophile, declared mentally fit to be extradited to Australia, Israeli court rules. So about her, she was a high school principal of the Ades Israel School in Elsternwick. She fled to Israel in 2008 when she learnt that some of her female victims were planning to file a complaint with police. She's facing 74 charges of child sexual abuse, and a lot of the MPs here with large Jewish constituencies, such as Josh Burns, Melbourne Ports, where the school was based, and also Dave Sharma, member for Wentworth, has a large local Jewish population as well. They'd been lobbying for this extradition, so her lawyers can still appeal this, but this is only the beginning of the Justice campaign. Well, to bring her to justice, she's got to be extradited back to Australia and then face trial as well, and then a conviction has to be reached here. So that is some progress to celebrate. Attorney General Christian Porter today made a statement of it, saying that he was pleased with this outcome. Also, race politics in the United States has flared up again, and it all started with, of course, Joe Biden saying during a basement stream that if you don't vote for him, you're not black. Which is, of course, the old Democrats' pitch to the black vote, that only the Democrats will save you from those evil racist Republicans, even though the Democratic Party, they were the original party of the racists and the segregationists in the Deep South. Joe Biden has previously said that the Republicans are going to put blacks back in chains, which is an absurd thing to say, an offensive thing as well. And I know that the Trump campaign has released a advertisement with a lot of black Trump supporters, rightfully calling out Biden's ridiculous statement. And it's certainly given the Black Slip movement, which is led by Candace Owens, blacks exiting the Democratic Party. I know that Diamond and Silk, another pair of black supporters, the two sisters, encourage their fellow Americans of African ethnicity. They don't like to be called African Americans. They say that they're Americans, which they are. They say, get off that Democratic plantation. And we saw this really disturbing incident in New York Central Park, where there was this. Make sure I get a name right. Amy Cooper, who, when she was approached by a black man in Central Park who told her to put her dog on a leash, which is regulation, she called the police to say that an African-American man was threatening her. She's lost a job now, lost her dog, and it actually turns out that she's a liberal New Yorker. We'll comment more on this tonight on the Uncockables, but it doesn't appear to she obviously, when she made the 911 call she said that he was African American, but it basically sounded like because she didn't like what she was being told to do, which the man was correct to tell her to put her dog on a leash if it is the law there. But it seemed it also reminded me of those sinister, I would say, false assault accusations where women accuse men of assault. The men get their lives ruined by the assault allegation, and thankfully this man, I'll get his name was also Cooper as well. I can't remember his first name. But yes, all of these, both of these incidents were by so-called liberal progressives, and also there has been a black criminal suspect has died in police custody in Minneapolis in Minnesota, and so there are massive, it was all captured on camera, and so there are massive protests in Minneapolis against police brutality and profiling against blacks. So we had hoped that, because remember that Black Lives Matter and police brutality against blacks, that peaked during Obama's presidency, the first black or African-American president, and then it settled down under Trump, but it's now flaring up again. But this is certainly not something that has started in Trump's America. It started in Obama's America. All right, and as I alluded to, I'll see hopefully all of you on Uncockables tomorrow night, 8:30 p.m. Melbourne time, on the show YouTube and DLive channel. Just checking I haven't missed any comments on Entropy. Thank you for Margot for moderating tonight. And thank you everyone for watching. You can see more news, essays, and now history pieces on the unshackled.net. And of course, Friday night on the Unshackled main channel, round up the week with Trad Tasman Talk with Duo de Boer, 6 p.m. Melbourne time. So that's it from me tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see you all tomorrow night.
Thanks for tuning in to Wilmsfront. Visit timwilms.com or Rational Rise TV to view the archive of episodes. And keep visiting the unshackled.net to view all our shows.